Man, what is going on, guys? It has been, I don't know, a year plus, maybe more, since I have released an episode on the 1% Mindset podcast. And I felt extremely inclined to bring it back in long form. You know, for those of you who've been following or who've been watching me, if you go on like Spotify or any of the streaming platforms, I've been doing the Mental Jolt podcast, podcast that I started, I want to say in 2020, maybe 2019, 2020, I believe. And basically, that podcast ran straight through for 3+ years, over 350 episodes. I did it Monday through Friday. I always made sure that I tried to add value in short form because I know that people have a short attention span and don't listen to podcasts. So I said, I can drop the gems very quickly, very efficiently, very effectively in short form between 3 to 5, maybe sometimes 7 minutes. And uh, you can get your daily motivation, right? The podcast Mental Jolt was supposed so you can get your quick dose of daily motivation. And then I started to realize that it started to become very mundane for me, right? And a lot of stuff has been happening in my life, personally, professionally, and it takes a lot of mindset, right? And sometimes I don't appreciate some of the stuff that I go through and how I've overcome it. Let me rephrase that. Not that I don't appreciate it, but I don't think that people actually understand the magnitude of some of the stuff that I go through, and for people to understand. You hear these sirens in the background because I'm actually doing this podcast, and of course police go by, but that's a part of the process, right? That's the realness of where I'm at. So today's podcast is going to be a welcome back. It's something that I want to do weekly, if not bi-weekly, right? I'm not going to make any promises. I have a lot on my plate. I have a lot that I'm doing. However, I think it's important that there's some information that comes out, and I'm excited. I'm excited to share with you what's been going on, the updates, really having a callous mind and just kind of growing in the space and re-bringing back the 1% Mindset podcast, because ultimately that is where a lot of my content has been based. A lot of the work that I've done, I've poured out into that podcast, and it just continued to keep me sharp. So, I'm back. Welcome back. So today's podcast, it's gonna be called the overview, right? Because there's so much that's happened, and because I'm going through everything, and you guys haven't heard from me. The last episode, I think it was with my homie Brittany Benson, who owns a gym in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, a female-owned, black-owned gym, small business that they're killing it. I eventually want to have her back on so she can talk about some of the stuff that she's done since then. Just a really sharp human being, but I want to go through like what has happened. So since the podcast, a lot of things have happened. For those of you who don't know, I don't know if I brought it to the forefront, but again, I want to, I want to showcase certain things because it important that you see this. For those of you who know, I was previously engaged. I'm no longer engaged since then, and since then a lot of stuff has happened. But one of the lessons that I learned from that was no matter what, you have to trust your gut, you have to trust your intuition, and as people and things and places show you what it is, you believe it. Now, I'm not saying that because the situation was bad or the person was bad. Everything that happened in that situation was on me. However, a lot of the moves that I made, a lot of the things that I did was because I didn't want people to judge me. I didn't want people to talk about me. I felt bad about situations. Like all these things, none of that allowed me to make a decision that made sense. All the decisions that were made were based on other people. I wanted to display this image of who I was as this perfect being, as this perfect person that made no flaws. I wanted people to like me. Why? Because I like to be liked. The reality is I liked to be liked. So if you didn't like me, regardless of who it was, I'm like, why? I'm a cool dude. Everybody likes me. And the fact that people judged me or thought something about me bothered me. Right, and I took so long, and after that situation 2 3 years, 2 years ago, I started to realize. I started to study this guy by the name of Peter Crone, and I've spoken about him on the Mental Jolt podcast before, but one of his quotes is, "Life will offer you people and circumstances to reveal where you're not free." I'm going to repeat it again because it's so profound for me. Life will offer you people and circumstances to reveal where you're not free. Right? And so there was a point in the space where I wanted something, and I wanted things to work out so bad in business and relationships and in all of these things. I wanted things to work out so bad. And as bad as I wanted it to work out, I didn't see things for the way they were. I kept lying to myself. Things are going to change. I'm going to change. They are going to change. The situation will change. I continued to lie to myself instead of seeing what is. Oh, I invested so much time into this space. I invested so much money. I invested so much whatever it is. And because you think you invested so much, or because I'm not going to say you invested so much, you think you have the right, or you earn the right to have the result that you want. Instead of understanding that the results are going to be the results no matter what. And when you're comfortable with the results being the results no matter what, it doesn't matter. Because the process continues to work the same. You still have to go through the process. And you get to see things for what it is. The problem is, fam, is you're not willing to see things the way they are. I'm not willing to see things the way they are sometimes. It's tough. It's difficult. I'm not going to say it's easy or simple. It's not. However, at what point in time do you stop lying to yourself and you start being real with the situation, with who you are? Right? Because it's passion that's going to fuel things. It's understanding. If you understand who you are, then you'll never have a situation where you will put up, or you'll deal with a situation that's not conducive to the overall well-being of what it is that you want. Right? You have to get to a place where you can see what that looks like. Look, I can't pour out to you, or I can't tell. Look, there's no reason for you to advise someone on something you've never done. In any situation I'm in, any relationship, any business transaction, if I'm offering advice, if I'm doing something, I've either gotten mentored by it with someone who's done it, or I've experienced it myself. If not, then there's no reason for me to give advice. It's either the facts or it's not. You're either going to do it or you won't. It's either going to work or it's not. It's simple. There's something there to be said about people who tiptoe the line. You want the results, but you're not willing to put in the work. Right? You want to see certain things, but you're not willing to see yourself. Look, how can you expect someone to respect you, to love you, to care for you if you don't respect, love, or care for yourself? If you can't see you for who you are, how can you expect anyone else to see it? How? Right? There's always going to be a place and a space where you get to make a decision. The decision is hard, and you deal with the results. The results will be the results no matter what. It happened because it was supposed to. Period. Right? And I want to, I'm passionate about this because as I continue to live life, my life, and I start to see results, the results are as grateful as I am for the results. It is what it is. Right? When you go through adversity, the same way you go through adversity, it should be the way you go through excitement. I was talking to a business partner of mine, right? I'm going through, and I'll talk about this a little later so you don't experience this as well. I'm going through a situation with my accountant, and although he's great, there's some stuff that happened, and my my business partner, she said to me, "Man, the way you're handling it is amazing, right? Like, hey, you're better than me, right?" And to be fair, to be frank, I wanna be honest with numbers and what it looks like. I have $66,000 a year per year for 3 years, right? So what's that? A little bit less than 200 grand. So the 690, 99, yeah, a little bit less than 200 grand in the balance right now because of an error that I didn't know about from my accountant. Why am I saying this, right? I'm saying, and I wouldn't say no, it is an error, right? But I take accountability because I get to know certain things. But I'm saying that to say, with all that money that's in the balance, that's awaiting, right, and waiting on him to do some things that he was supposed to do a while ago, and still hasn't done yet. I said, she said, "Man, you're handling it very well," and I said, "How? What am I gonna do?" Right? This is where we are. By me yelling, screaming, cursing, like that is not going to change the fact that we're in this situation. The situation is the situation. Now we get to figure out how can you move past the situation? What moves can you make to ensure that you get through what it is that you need to get through? What are the moves? What does it look like in a real way? And I say that because so often, because of emotions, we react to certain things. We take things personal. Why is this happening to me? Like you're the only one in the freaking universe that's dealing with stuff. Allergies is killing me. But you're not the only. Look, I'm not diminishing or taking away that you're not going through anything. Of course, everyone's going through things. But if all you can think about is why me and you sit in that stuff, you're going to go through it anyway. Why don't you find a solution? Why don't you be okay with what is instead of complaining about it? Right? This is as real as it could get. Right? This is as real as it could get. I don't want to sugarcoat you. I'm not trying to give you nice words so you can feel good. I want to be real because yes, you went through something yesterday. You may have gone through something today. I guarantee you're gonna go through it tomorrow, or in the future. Right? Problems never go away. They never go away. How do you solve for what is there? It will determine how you decide to move. You can sit in it and complain about it, or you can say, man, this is the situation. This is how I'm going to move from it. Right? You have to make adjustments. If you're not willing to make adjustments in life, you're going to be in a situation that you're stagnant. If you're not willing to take it, if you're not willing to go to mentors or coaches or people who are where you want to be because you're so stuck in your way, it's never going to work. If you're not willing to not take things see, it's interesting because when you take things personal, it really does show a space that you have an issue in. Seriously. It shows that it reveals itself in a way that it's like, man, now you get to take accountability. Right? Oh, it came from a person I truly care about. And what? So what? If someone says something about you that wasn't true to your face and it's not true, you be like, okay. If you took offense to it, then no, it's not true. Who cares? Why are you so bent out of shape and riled up over something that you deem is not true? Does it matter what they think about you? Should it matter, I should say. Now, does it matter is a different question. Should it matter? Because if a person from down the street that you didn't know said something offensive and drove by, I'm like, man, this person is weird. They're dumb. Right? It wouldn't even bother you. It would be in one ear, out the other. However, it is the stuff that bothers you that shows the insecurities of what's there. The self-worth issues, right? The lack of understanding for who you are. Like you can't address something that you're not willing to admit is there. You cannot heal what you won't reveal. It's that simple. If you're not willing to look at yourself the way I'm looking at you now and say, man, this is who I am. This is ugly. I hate it. But I'm willing to do what it takes to work on it, then it's okay. As soon as you start making excuses, start blaming, I don't like this, or why did you, already you're playing the victim. You're playing a victim. And it's not something that is sustainable long term with high level people. Because then they're going to stop caring. Misery loves company. You want to be miserable? Find miserable people. I guarantee you can find miserable people, and you guys can complain about your lives and why it's not fair and all that stuff, and you guys will have a jolly old time complaining about it. Or you can take on your life in a different way and say, you know what? It's time for me to be the best version of me in a real way. Be the best version of me in a real way. So I'm going to take on, if I'm fat, guess what? I need to change my diet. I need to go to the gym. I need to drink water. Right? So if you're offended that someone called you fat, internally, if you think you're fat, then that's exactly what's going to happen. But you can control how you view things and the moves that you make. Right? Yes, you can be comfortable in your skin, of course, right? I'm not saying big people aren't comfortable, of course. But you have one body. You got to take care of it the best way you can. So if you're eating crap, then you get the results that you get. Oh, Mike, that's so offensive. Fine. It can be offensive, right? That's not my intention. Right? What I'm saying is, if internally you feel like you're fat or you're big, right, or you're overweight, if that's the better wording for it, the politically correct word, then you get to figure out, how can I make these changes so I can be a better me? Right? You're not competing with an IG model. You're competing with you. Can you look in the mirror the next day and say, man, I'm big, but, oh, I slimmed this. I lost 2 pounds here. Then you start to build confidence. So I'm not even saying the space that you're in, because you're there, you gotta lack confidence. But if you're working diligently to make things happen, right? And I mean in a real way, and not being stagnant, right? You can be in a routine, I'm doing this, and if it's not working, adjust. Try something else. Look, I was in the gym for years and I stayed the same exact weight. Didn't get bigger. Right? I went from 137, right? I was an athlete, right? I was a long distance runner, to 145. Stayed there for like a year. I teetered around between teetered around between 147 and 149. The goal was always to get to 150. 150 was the goal. 150. Right? Pandemic hit, got up to 150. That year I hit 160, right? Why? Obviously, pandemic, we're sitting home, we're doing nothing. I was eating. And the problem with that, and let me just put my phone on Do Not Disturb. The problem with that is, what's the word I'm looking for? Once I hit 160, I knew it was unhealthy weight. Right? I lost my train of thought. Someone called me. Once I hit 160, I got to 160, but my face was bigger, right? Like my abs weren't showing. Pandemic, went away. I dropped back down to 150, right? Got sick. I even went down to 144 at the top of this year, right? I haven't been in the 140s in 2+ years. And I said, you know what, Mike? My goal is to get healthier, is to get stronger, right? I was benching, maxing 185. I was like, I need to get stronger. I need to add more weight, add more muscle. This is intentionally what I'm doing to create the life that I want. Intentionally. What are the results now? Last I checked, I was like 157. I literally just hit the bench. I maxed out at 205, um, which I'm grateful for. The goal is to get to 225, and I'm no longer going to use the excuse because of my size. 225 is the goal. I need to rep it at least one time, and I'm going to hit that goal by the end of the year. Why? Because that's what I'm going to work on. I'm not going to make excuses because of the size or my metabolism is fast or blah. Like, none of that matters if you want the end result. You can make an excuse or you can make things happen. Right? That's literally the space you can be in. So you ask me, Mike, how are you doing overall? I'm doing great. Right? I'm in some tax issues because my accountant didn't do what he needed to do. Probably 5 figures. It's not a big deal. Well, it sucks. But why am I saying that? I could be stressed about it, like, yo, I didn't expect that, or figure out, like, how do I handle the situation? I choose, hey, I gotta handle the situation in whatever it looks like. I get to handle it, right? I'm seeking counsel in other areas to figure out what I need to do. Why? Because that's important. Now, look. Again, I'm trying to be sensitive to what I say because again, we live in this world now where, I'm offended, and because I'm offended, it's truth, right? It just like it makes no sense. But since this is where we are, I'll say this. And I said this to someone and it didn't sit well. But I'll say this. You can only be offended if you give someone the permission to offend you. Point blank, period. That is the only time you can be offended. That is the only time that I will ever be offended, is if I give someone the permission to offend me. The only time. Right? Because nothing, no matter what you say to me, look, you could say something that is quote unquote deemed hurtful. If you said it in Chinese, or Mandarin, right? Or Spanish or French or any other language, and I didn't understand it, would I be offended? No. Right? You say it in a language I understand. Now I'm offended because, oh, you said that. Who cares? I believe in me, in who I am, in what I do. So there's nothing that you can say to offend me. I want to go through these problems because I'm going through these problems with the tax situation because I know I have a lot of money coming. In other areas. Am I seeing it now? No. Will I? Absolutely. I make adjustments. I said to myself, hey, Mike, I am burnt out dealing with kids. I knew I was burnt out. Now, keep in mind, right, I just told you about the $66,000 a year contract that's through the city that I have to handle. That's working with kids. I have a big contract in the summertime that I work with. That's a healthy 5-figure contract. That's with kids. Had some library contracts. Those are with kids. And I said, man, if I'm burnt out, am I going to just complain about being burnt out and not wanting to do this, half do the job? I was like, no. I'm going to do what I have to do, right? It's feeding me, but what am I going to do in the interim? 2 things. I said, you know what? I like the idea of being a sales engineer. Being black in tech, I want to do it. So what I do? I pay for a boot camp. On the whim. Boot camp. Hey, this is what I want to do. Sales engineer. Adjusting the resume. Why? Because I said it will give me an opportunity to have something that can be remote, to do what I've done already. And now the stuff with the kids, I can divvy out more of it so I can still have the impact that I want, but it doesn't feel like a monetary space. Make a little bit more, but the company will make a whole lot more, right? And by that, I can hire people, then I will be able to make a lot more. Because I've been doing it on my own, I'm burnt out, and because I don't feel like doing it anymore. So I made adjustments. You get to make adjustments. You don't complain about it. I realized, man, I was complaining like, oh, I'm burnt out. What did I decide to do? Fix it. Adjust. Make some changes. My results are my results because that's who I am. And if that's who I am and I want a different thing, I get to do something different and not complain about it. Right? I can't hold anyone to expectations that I'm not willing to hold for myself. And if you're in a space or a place where someone is holding you to different expectations than they're willing to have for themselves, that is the wrong place to be in. That is the wrong circle to be in. Get with people who's going to hold you accountable, but who's like, I'm going to walk through this fire with you, or I've walked through this fire already. Life isn't that bad. Because if you're able to do that and get around these right people, then you're good. I can't tell you, reading is important, right? This is what allowed me to start my speaking career, and I'm not reading. I can't. But if I'm doing that, and I'm doing that with conviction, anything that I speak to you about is coming from my truth. It's coming from me, because the fact is, I can't fake real. And too many of you guys, for the gram, for this, for that, are trying to fake the funk and be who you're not, or try to live up to these expectations that you're not willing to do the work for. This is an everyday thing. This doesn't happen by accident. You don't get results by accident. This contract that I got that finally came through, I started working on that in August last year. We're in May. We're in May, right? May 17th. I started working on it in August last year. Proposals, back and forth, getting denied, fixing things. Now it's finally come through, and I have another hurdle to jump. Can I complain about the hurdle? I could. Right? This is my, my business partner was like, man, you're calm, you're chilling. I could complain about it, or I can just figure it out, because the problem's gonna be there regardless. Now, where are you when it comes to problems is the question. When the problem arises, do you complain about the problem, or do you just handle the problem? Because problems will always be problems. Right? So, Mike, you're asking, hey, overview, how you been since you last did this podcast a year plus 2? I don't even know how long it's been. I've been great. Been hanging out, drinking my water, dating, trying to make decisions that make sense. But I realized something in the space, that I can only be me, and I have to see things for what it is. I have to see people for who they are. I have to see situations for what it is. I have to know when it's time to make decisions. And typically it's right away. You hope for things to change, and sometimes they don't. You hope for people to change, and sometimes they won't. You hope for situations to change, and maybe it will, maybe it won't. The fact is, if you're able to see you for who you are, then you're able to see the world for what it is. Let me say that if you're able to see if you're able to see you for who you really are, you're able to see the world for what it really is. But if you're lying to yourself, anything in your vantage point that comes from the outside world will come from a lens that isn't truth. And if you're coming from a lens that isn't truth, then you're going to always be easily manipulated. Easily gullible, easily tricked. How do I know? Because it's happened to me. It's happened to me multiple times. And because it's happened to me, I no longer allow things to happen. I see things and people for who they are. Only always. Anyway, fam, it's been a pleasure to really do this podcast. I feel good. I hope you got value from this podcast. It's coming back. Please share it. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on all the streaming platforms. If you receive value from this podcast, please go on Apple, go on YouTube, leave a comment, go on Apple, rate the podcast. It's been a while, but it's coming back. I think that I deserve it, but also you deserve it. And I hope this value is helpful.